Hi folks, this is Digital Hobbit, and this is another episode of Digital Hobbit's RPG Reflections. Today I'm going to talk about how to leverage AI, or artificial intelligence, for RPGs. This will be a little bit of a different approach for me, as I'll be doing this right now while I'm recording this video. And with AI, you never quite know what you're going to get. So I'll just have some fun and we'll try to roll with it as best as I can. But before I get into the main topic, we need to cover my recent reflections. And there's really only one possible thing to talk about right now: the OGL, or Open Game License, by Wizards of the Coast. So this past week, there was a ton of drama in RPG circles about this topic. And honestly, most things have been said about this already by many other armchair lawyers, and you probably don't need more speculation from someone like me that really has no clue about legal stuff. So I actually won't talk more about the specifics here. Google it if you're curious. I'll just say this: wotc, or Wizards of the Coast, really shot themselves in the foot here by trying to screw over all the small publishers that helped make D&D and RPGs successful, and they deserve all the backlash that they're getting. It's actually quite encouraging to see many of the other publishers coming together to rally around this issue. Personally, I'm done with wotc. I'm not planning to buy any more official 5e products. I cancelled my D&D Beyond subscription to put my money where my mouth is, and otherwise I'll just continue supporting the smaller publishers out there, which is pretty much where my focus has been anyway. That's all I'm going to say on this topic. With that, let's jump into the main topic. So a little bit of background and disclaimer. First of all, I'm not planning to exhaustively cover all of the tools out there, nor specific use cases in great depth. Rather, my goal here is to whet your appetite and inspire you to explore things yourself. Second, I'm a tech geek, but while I do work in the tech industry, I don't directly work on machine learning or artificial intelligence, so I'm really just approaching this as a very enthusiastic consumer. And three, I feel like this really is a major revolution in the space. It's at least as big as the internet itself being adopted by the masses in the 90s, or smartphones in the late 2000s. My honest opinion is that this changes everything, so we better strap in and go along for the ride. Let me briefly mention the tools that I'm going to talk about today. First up, we have ChatGPT, which is an AI chatbot, and it's surprisingly powerful and versatile. Unless you're living under a rock, you've likely heard quite a bit of buzz about this in recent weeks. There are some caveats that actually apply to most of these tools. In case of ChatGPT, it was trained on pre-2022 data, so it has very limited knowledge of events since then. And second, like all large language models, its answers aren't necessarily truthful. In other words, it will often make shit up, so it'll provide responses that look and sound plausible, but are factually incorrect. Now, for our purposes, this usually won't matter too much, but it's something to be aware of when you're using these tools for other things, perhaps. The second tool I'm going to touch on is Midjourney. This is an example of a generative art tool. Similar tools might be DALL-E or Stable Diffusion. I'll focus mostly on text today, but I'll give at least one example of how you might use generative artwork for RPGs. And last not least, we have Notion. This is a bit of a bonus. Notion actually isn't an AI tool at all, but a note-taking app similar to OneNote or Evernote. However, they are currently running a beta that incorporates some of these AI capabilities and makes them easily accessible. And actually, that convenience is quite powerful. And here are some techniques that I'm going to be talking about today. These aren't meant to be precise recipes. Rather, I hope you see these as inspiration to come up with your own ways to leverage AI. So we're going to be using AI to create an RPG setting premise. We'll try creating campaign and adventure outlines. We'll create unique locations and plot hooks, NPCs and monsters, maybe some random encounter tables. We'll try creating a Pantheon. This is kind of an example of a specific setting aspect. And maybe some inspirational artwork. Let us jump into ChatGPT. So here we go. This is the ChatGPT web interface. And the first thing we're going to try is something very simple, actually. So we can use ChatGPT to recommend an RPG that you might want to run with your friends. So I am going to copy and paste, just for expediency's sake, some text into this prompt here. This is kind of a hypothetical situation, right? But let's say you're done with your current campaign and you're trying to figure out what to play next. So I'm going to ask it, recommend a tabletop RPG for my group to play. We played a lot of D&D recently, and I'm in the mood for running something very different. I'm open to any genre, but Roger doesn't like horror, and Sally prefers serious and grim settings. I prefer rules light systems, but Bob would like opportunities for building interesting characters and growing these over the course of the campaign. Sally doesn't want to have to read a long rulebook. Something that we can play both in person and on a VTT would be ideal. So, as you see, actually I'm just using regular natural language to describe what I want, what my constraints are, and let's see what it spits out. All right, looks like we just got a paragraph of text here. You never quite know. Sometimes it presents things in list form. Sometimes it's just kind of a wall of text. So let's look at this, and we can always ask it to regenerate if we're not happy. So it says, one RPG that might suit your group's preferences is Fate Core. It's flexible, rules-light system that can accommodate a wide range of genres, from fantasy to science fiction to superheroes. The system is designed to be easy to learn, so Sally shouldn't have trouble getting into it. So you see here that it's actually trying to, pick up on the specific constraints I mentioned in my prompt. It also has a lot of support for building interesting characters and developing them over time, which should appeal to Bob. In addition, the game is well suited for both in-person and online play, and there are many resources available for running it on virtual tabletops. Finally, it doesn't have a horror genre and can be serious and grim. This last sentence feels a little bit weird, right? You can certainly run horror games with Fate, and there are some out there. I think there might even be a horror toolkit, so this isn't quite right. What I could do now is click on Regenerate Response and just have it do it over. Or, since this is actually a chat bot, I can just respond and ask it to refine the response. So I can just keep it simple and say, any other recommendations? And see what it spits out here. Okay, looks like as an alternative to Fate, it is recommending Powered by the Apocalypse, PBTA games. Right? It says that PBTA games are a family of RPGs that use a similar mechanic, which are designed to be easy to learn and highly flexible. Then it mentions a few examples here, like Monster of the Week, which is a horror-themed game where players take on the roles of monster hunters. But it does address the horror constraint I mentioned earlier. While it has horror elements, it still has a light-hearted tone, making it less grim than some other horror games. Another example is Apocalypse World. Okay, so this might work, right? Let me maybe reinforce the horror aspect a little bit and say, I really don't want a horror game. What else would you recommend? Maybe I can suggest some other genres. Maybe something fantasy, sci-fi, or how about some cyberpunk? All right, here we got a bunch more options. This time it's printed them out in more of a list form. So it looks like it's recommending 4 more systems. We have the One Ring, a fantasy RPG set in J.R.R. Tolkien's Middle-earth. That could work. Starfinder as a sci-fi RPG. That actually seems like a good recommendation based on the prompt that I put in. Cyberpunk Red as a cyberpunk option, and a personal favorite of mine, Shadow of the Demon Lord, a fantasy RPG that has a darker and grimmer tone and is set in a world on the brink of destruction. Players will face terrifying monsters, powerful wizards, and dark secrets, but it also has a lot of support for creating interesting characters and developing them over time. See, so this last one, for example, is what I might go with based on my prompt. It does seem to meet all the constraints. It's grim, but not really horror. There is actually a lot of character customization in Shadow of the Demon Lord. But I am biased here. It is one of my favorite systems. It also addresses the VTT topic here, right? It mentions all of them can be played in person and on a VTT. And they have fairly light rule systems. So that's great. And again, you can follow up as needed. So I might ask it, let's go with Shadow of the Demon Lord. What intro adventure might I run? See if I can get it to suggest some nice intro adventures to run with Shadow of the Demon Lord. Okay, so it looks like I did get it to suggest a couple of options. And here, I have to admit, I'm not sure if it's actually just making shit up or not. So we have the disappearance of Sven Bjornsson. The second one is actually just Shadow of the Demon Lord itself. This adventure is designed for a group of second-level characters. Town plagued by a powerful demon, blah, blah, blah. That sounds like BS right there. The Witch of Whitfield and The Dark of the Wood. None of these names ring a bell, but that doesn't mean they don't exist. Let me actually take one of these and Google it just to see if it's a real adventure. So let's do SOTDL. And yeah, that doesn't look like it's pulling up anything. Let me try it without the SOTDL. No, there was actually a Sven Bjornsson apparently in the 1800s. So this is interesting. I think we just caught OpenAI in a lie, right? So this is something to watch out for. Sometimes it'll just make stuff up, and it'll sound very, very plausible. So that's an interesting caveat. Let's move on to like a different type of prompt. I'm going to see if I can use ChatGPT to come up with an interesting setting premise, right? So let's say I don't have a particular system in mind, or maybe I do, and it's a system that's very flexible, like Fade or Cortex Prime or something like that. And I just want to come up with an interesting idea. So let's start a new chat. That's important because it always preserves the context of your previous conversation otherwise. And I really kind of want to flush that, right, and start over with a new conversation about a different topic. So I'm just going to use this simple prompt here. Come up with a unique and interesting premise for an RPG setting. Let's see what it gives me. I've had some pretty good results in the past. So let's see. ChatGPT is suggesting, in a world where magic and technology have fused together, players take on the role of technomancers, individuals with the rare ability to manipulate and control technology with their minds. The civilization is ruled by powerful megacorporations, each vying for control and dominance in this high-tech society. However, a mysterious force threatens to disrupt the balance of power, and the players must uncover the truth behind this threat while navigating the cutthroat corporate world. Will they align themselves with one of the corporations or forge their own path as rebels fighting against the oppression? The choice is yours in this cyberpunk-inspired fantasy RPG setting. That's actually quite neat. So yeah, there's clearly a big cyberpunk vibe, right? There's maybe a little bit of a slightly science fantasy vibe as well, with a mysterious force, although it's unclear what that force is. Maybe that force is just a corporation or something. I'm actually not a huge expert on cyberpunk. I'm going to try regenerating and see what else it might suggest, right? All right, so that's actually interesting. It's doing something very similar. I haven't seen it do that before. Again, it's in a world where magic and technology have fused together. Players take the role of technomancers. They're part of a secret society, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so it combines cyberpunk and fantasy maybe a little bit more than the previous one, but I actually want something a little bit more different. So let's regenerate one more time. I could also, and that might have been better in this case, give it a follow-up prompt and say, hey, how about something not cyberpunk? Okay, I somehow got it stuck in a weird mode where it keeps recommending the same thing. I'm actually going to stop this, click new chat, right? I'll use the same prompt, but I'll make it more specific. So instead of an RPG setting, let's say for a fantasy RPG setting. Okay, so this looks something very different. In a world where magic is fueled by the collective belief of its inhabitants, a great war between rival kingdoms has left the land in ruins and the people without hope. The ruling powers, desperate to regain control, have begun a campaign to systematically stamp out any belief in the old gods and legends. Adventurers must navigate this world where the very act of believing in magic can get them branded as heretics and hunted by the state, all while searching for a way to reignite the belief of the people and restore magic to the land. That's actually quite interesting. I quite like this. So let's say we wanted to go with this, right? Maybe this has enough inspiration for me. So now let's have a think about what an actual campaign might look like. So I will use this follow-up prompt. So I will literally just say, I like that. What might a campaign look like that uses this setting premise? Tell me about the overarching plot and side quests that characters might experience. Also include some important NPCs. So let's see what it spits out. Okay, so it's getting quite busy here, filling in a lot of stuff. So let's just read through the overarching plot. Would revolve around the characters discovering the truth behind the war and the current state of the world, and working to overthrow the oppressive regime that is suppressing magic. As they journey through the world, the characters will encounter various side quests and challenges that will test their beliefs and determination. For example, and here's a few side quests, I guess. They might come across a village where the people have stopped believing in the old gods, causing their crops to fail and their wells to dry up. The characters must help rekindle their faith in order to save the village. The next one is, the characters may discover an underground network of magic users and heretics who are working to keep their beliefs alive despite the risks. The characters must decide whether to join them in their fight or turn them over to the authorities. And the last one about a powerful sorcerer. So yeah, those all seem like some interesting adventures right there. And last not least, we have a couple of important NPCs. So we got the leader of the oppressive regime, a charismatic and power-hungry dictator who will stop at nothing to maintain his grip on the world. An old wizard who has gone into hiding after his belief in magic got him branded as a heretic. A wise old druid. We got a bard. So there's probably enough juice here, right, to come up with a proper campaign, think of an intro adventure, and get going. Next, let's try something different. So we will start a new chat again, and I want to see if I can get it to come up with a nice encounter table for an old school game. So I'm going to ask it to come up with an encounter table for an old school fantasy RPG. All right, and here we are. Looks like it gave me a D10 base table. I didn't actually specify what type of die to use. And we got a decent mix here, you know, bandits, wolves, spiders, skeletons, It's telling me a little bit about how to use this, right? It's explaining that the number in parentheses represents the quantity of the encounter, and that I can either adjust it or roll it. So that's actually quite neat. Let me see if I can ask it to tweak this for a particular type of environment. So let's say, what if the adventure is set in a swamp? All right, so now it's refining it, and it's giving me a encounter table for a swamp-based adventure. And you can see that everything it's creating here just fits a lot better into that environment. We got giant mosquitoes, swamp goblins, whatever that is, but it sounds fun. It's definitely giving me some inspiration. A giant toad, lizard, centipede, swamp crocodile, shambling mound, a will-o'-the-wisp, and a black dragon. So this actually seems, yeah, this seems great right there, right? If I was running an adventure in the swamp. And then I can try another thing. So this is a D10 based table, and it's just linear, right? Each of these have an equal chance, which means I'm just as likely to encounter a black dragon as, you know, a lizard or something. That doesn't feel quite right. So I'm going to see if I can get it to spit out a 2d6 based table instead. So we have more of a bell curve, right, with some common things in the middle, and then the not so common things on the lower and higher numbers. So can you turn this into a 2d6 based table instead, so we get a nice bell curve distribution? I'm going to make this very explicit just so it knows why I'm asking for this, just in case. I generally find that the more explicit you can be in these types of things, the better the results. This looks pretty promising, right? So we're starting at number 2 now. Got some giant mosquitoes there. In the middle, it looks like we have things like lizards, maybe a centipede, crocodile. Those all feel like things that should be pretty frequent in a swamp. And then we got the, okay, that works, I guess. We got the dragon on 11, which is fairly rare. And then we got nothing on the 12. And again, I could keep iterating on this. You know, I could tell it to not have an empty slot or something like that. I'm going to do one more thing here. Please include stats, or let's say monster stats, just to be explicit. And turn this into table format. See if it can do that. I think that's going to be a little bit cleaner if I wanted to, you know, use this in an adventure, copy and paste it. Okay, here we go. Yeah, very nice. See, so you can see it's creating a really nice looking table now. We got the roll at the beginning. In fact, looks like it now uses ranges here, so they're not all just a single die result, but we have things kind of grouped together. So on a 2 or a 3, we would be encountering some giant mosquitoes. It has the quantity broken out separately. That's nice. And it has some monster stats in there. Looks like this would work, you know, for any old school D&D-like system, right? I'm not going to spend a lot of detail now to look at how realistic these are, but at first glance, right, this is looking pretty reasonable. The dragon has by far the highest number of hit points compared to anything else in here. It also puts out the most damage, and including some fire damage. So yeah, this actually looks quite nice. So I'm going to stop this random encounter business here, but again, I hope this illustrates that you could pretty easily generate any type of random encounter table and even get it to include some stats, perhaps. I'll demonstrate one last thing in ChatGPT before we move on to some of the other tools. So we've done a lot of fantasy. I'm going to ask it to generate something sci-fi related. So let's see if I can get it to spit out a random star system. So my prompt here is random star system for a sci-fi RPG. For each planet, include a name, description, technology level, some interesting locations, NPCs, and plot hooks. Actually, I'm going to maybe preemptively suggest that it use table format. So please use table format. See if that works. Okay, it's still writing, but you can see it's coming up with a nice table, and it is using all of the prompt info that I mentioned, right? So it's including technology level, it's including interesting locations, it has some NPCs, and even plot hooks. So if we look at this first one, we have Ventax 2, a desert planet with a thin atmosphere. The technology level is medieval. Interesting location is the lost city of the ancients. That sounds pretty inspiring right there. As NPCs, we have a tribe of nomads. And the plot hook is a valuable artifact is said to be hidden in the lost city, but the nomads are rumored to be fiercely protective of their land. That's actually quite neat right there. Let's scroll down. So there's quite a few. It looks like we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 planets total in this system. Let's maybe take a look at, and they're quite different, right? And it seems like it's going a little bit with the, single biome trope. And I have to admit, I kind of like that in my sci-fi RPGs. I like them to lean into those types of tropes. So we have a jungle planet. We have a gas giant. Let's read this one. So we have Zephyr, a gas giant with numerous orbiting moons. Tech level is modern. We have the Zephyr mining colony as an interesting location, and a group of miners. The colony's primary source of income, a rare mineral found on one of the moons, is running low, and the miners are desperate to find a new source before the colony collapses. That's great. It's an awesome adventure right there. Right? Others are around jungle with a temple, a tribe of indigenous people, and a sacred relic. So that sounds almost a bit more fantasy. I like that actually to mix things up a little bit. Last not least here, there's an ocean planet with advanced underwater cities. Oh, post-apocalyptic. That's neat. And there are ruins of the surface cities, kind of like a Atlantis kind of thing. NPCs are pirates and scavengers. And plot hook, a valuable technology is rumored to still be functional in the ruins of the surface cities, but dangerous mutated creatures roam the area. So this is great, right? This star system alone would be easily months of adventuring in a fun sci-fi RPG. Like, actually, I won't drop any names. Whatever RPG you like in that space. So I'll also take this opportunity to maybe play a little bit with image generation, right? So let's take one of these planets and see if we can come up with a nice, inspiring piece of art for it to really set the mood. So let's take maybe this one here, right? We have a gas giant with numerous orbiting moons. I'll just copy this description right here. All right, here we go. So here's my Discord window. What you see right here actually is how I generated my background for this very video that I'm recording. So in here, Midjourney uses Discord as its interface. So you literally just type in prompts and respond through emojis to get it to iterate on the results. So I'm gonna paste this description in right here. A gas giant with numerous orbiting moons. That's actually it. I could refine this further, right? I could tell it, do include this, don't include that. Or I could say, render it in the style of, a particular type of artist or a particular type of theme or anything like that. But I just want to see what it comes up with. So let's wait a moment here. All right, so there it is done. So the way Midjourney operates, and I can click on this, it always generates 4 kind of draft images. And actually, I quite like what I'm seeing here. These are pretty evocative, right? So Looks like it actually respected what I said. So there's like a big gas giant, and then you see a couple of moons around it. It's interesting. Some of these are just sort of free floating. Others look like they're from the perspective of another planet, right? So depending on what you're going for, that may or may not be what you want. Let's just maybe go with this one in the upper right because, well, I don't know. I quite like the one in the bottom left here. So, and what I could do now is basically click on this button here to upscale this third one. And now Midjourney gets to work and it'll turn that into a more detailed, larger picture. I think you get the idea, right? I could easily play with this. I could iterate a little bit more. I could ask it for different variations. I could describe maybe the perspective that it's supposed to be coming from a little bit more. And then you could easily add like a nice image for each of these planets, paste that into your whatever note-taking app you use, and boom, you have a nice evocative star system to play with. All right, looks like it's done rendering the full-size planet image. So this is how it came out. That looks quite nice. So I could now just, copy and paste this and put it into my note-taking tool or, whatever I'm using to organize my campaign ideas. With that, let's switch over to the next tool that I want to talk about, and that's Notion. All right, so Notion, again, is a note-taking tool. The AI feature is still in beta. You need to apply for access. I think I got it after a couple of weeks or so, but I'm assuming they're eventually going to roll this out to everybody. I don't know yet if that's going to be a premium feature that you have to pay for, or if it's going to be part of the free plan. I just use the free Notion plan right now. They actually use OpenAI underneath the hood, which is the technology company that also produces ChatGPT and other tools. I'm assuming that they use the DaVinci GPT-3 model, which is sort of a precursor to what ChatGPT uses. So it's actually similar, but slightly less powerful. It's good enough for most purposes, though, and the seamless integration into Notion really makes it extremely effective. So there's obviously a ton of things we could be doing here. I'll just go through a couple of scenarios. So for this first one, I figured let's just assume that we are working on a hex crawl and we wanted to come up with some interesting hex descriptions. So here I'm in my note and I just need to type /, and at that point, it's prompting me with a bunch of AI tools. There's a whole bunch of different options here. There's some pretty specific features like coming up with a pros and cons list or an essay or a poem or something like that. And actually all of those are really fun to play with. For now, I'm just going to go with the basic help me write prompt. That's actually what I've been using here most of the time. So I'm going to paste in this pre-written prompt that I already have. So I'm going to ask it to come up with a list of 5 hexes for an RPG hex crawl. Obviously, I would normally do more than 5. I just want to, keep it quick and easy. Each hex includes a name, general description of the biome, and 3 locations of interest. For each location, include a title, any NPCs or monsters that the characters might encounter, or treasure they might find. Also follow the hex list with a 2d6-based encounter table in table format. So as before, I'm trying to be just very explicit here and just describe in natural language what it is that I wanted to do. And, again, your results may vary. Let's see what we get. Okay, I think now we are in business. So let's scroll down a bit. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different hexes. And it looks like for each one, it has a name, a description, and a couple of different locations. It actually looks like it included 1, 2, 3. It looks like it included 4 locations for each hex. So it ignored my 3 locations prompt, but that's fine. Not too bad, I guess. So the first one, we have the Wailing Wastes, a barren landscape filled with jagged cliffs, deep crevices, and blistering winds. And then the locations are the Tower of Despair, a tall black tower surrounded by the remains of an ancient battlefield. Within the tower dwells a powerful necromancer and their undead minions. All right, that's pretty evocative right there. We also have the Whispering Cave, an eerie cave system rumored to be inhabited by a mysterious entity. Characters may find a hidden cache of magical artifacts. See, I did prompt it to include some treasure, so here's an example of that. Let's scroll down to some of the other hexes. So there's an evergreen valley, a lush valley filled with towering trees and winding rivers. The Burning Sands, an unforgiving desert filled with scorching heat and shifting dunes. I kind of like that. So here we have the Lost Oasis, a hidden oasis filled with palm trees and cool waters. The oasis is home to a powerful djinn and their loyal genies. So that's pretty fun. There's also a maze of mirrors, the ruins of the lost city, Temple of the Sun, right? So some really cool, inspiring locations. Tons of adventures right there. The Stormy Seas. I feel like it's maybe going a little bit overboard in making each of these hexes very different, right? So if I envision a hex crawl where neighboring hexes usually might be similar in terms of biome, these are actually all very different. So there's mountains, seas, desert, evergreen valley, and wastes. So you could probably tell it to not do that by adjusting your prompt. But for my purposes right now, actually, you could totally run with this and come up with some interesting things. Let's see if it also spit out an encounter table. And yep, sure enough, it looks like it did, right? So we have a 2d6 table again. And for the encounter, we have a goblin raid, band of brigands, lost patrol, lost traveler, wild animal, mysterious stranger, strange creature, dangerous beast, ancient ruins, hidden treasures, and magical encounter. So these are all pretty vague, but maybe that's actually not so bad in this case, right? If you want to go with more of an improv-based campaign, or you can just flesh these out ahead of time. And again, I could craft my prompt a little bit more explicitly and tell it exactly what I want. Another thing we can experiment with now is, let's just take one of these things. So maybe let's try this one here. So for the Stormy Seas, we have the Hidden Cove, a secret cove inhabited by friendly merfolk. Characters may find powerful magical items within its depths. So let me select this. And so now I get another AI option, AI Assist. So let me click on this. And there's similar options here, right? So I could improve the writing. That's great if you're composing an email or something. I can ask it to summarize. That could be really fun if you have a whole big adventure text or something and you just want to see, hey, what's the gist here? You can explain it, make it longer, make it shorter. So there's a lot of things we could do. I'm going to ask it to make it longer. See if I can get it to just elaborate a little bit on this idea. See what comes out here. All right, the Hidden Cove is a mysterious and secluded spot that few have had the pleasure of visiting. Its crystal clear waters are home to a variety of friendly merfolk, each possessing unique powers and abilities. Those brave enough to venture into the depths of the cove may be lucky enough to stumble upon powerful magic items, relics of a long-forgotten age. It is said that these items are capable of granting great power to those who possess them, so it is no wonder that adventurers from far and wide seek out the Hidden Cove in search of these wondrous treasures. So it's actually quite nice. It's a bit more evocative, perhaps. So I'm going to say insert, right? I don't want it to replace what I have, but rather just insert this kind of as almost box text a little bit. What it didn't do really is add more unique elements. It really just kind of, added more descriptive text to the existing ones. I'm going to try maybe one more, and then we'll move on to something different. So perhaps maybe this lost shrine. How about this tower? I actually like this. The Tower of the Ancients, an ancient tower inhabited by powerful druids who guard the secrets of the valley. Maybe it'll tell me a little bit more about the secrets, right? What those are. So let's say make it longer. I could try explain this, but I think that actually just prompts me for a different input. So let's try make it longer. Okay, the Tower of the Ancients, an ancient tower of unspeakable power and mystery, standing tall for centuries and shrouded in legend. It is said that powerful druids inhabit the tower, protecting the secrets of the valley from those who would seek them. For generations, these druids have kept the secrets of the valley safe, unlocking them only to those worthy of the knowledge. It is a place of ancient power and secrets, one that can only be accessed by those with the courage and strength to face the challenges and prove their worth. All right, so that's kind of neat. I'm going to insert this. And again, what it didn't really do is explain what the secrets are. That's kind of the hex crawl idea. Next up, let's maybe try to come up with some NPCs. Going to start a new page on NPCs. And here, we're going to, again, use help me write. And I'm going to paste in this prompt that I wrote earlier. So I will ask it to come up with a table of 10 unique and interesting NPCs that characters might encounter on a space station in a sci-fi RPG. They can be human, alien, or robots. For each NPC, include a name, physical appearance, personality, and motivation. Also include a plot hook. So let's see. If we're lucky, we'll get some nice output right at the beginning. Earlier on, I had to try this twice, but actually it looks like it's respecting my prompt this time. So first of all, we got a nice table output. For each NPC, it has a name, appearance, personality, motivation, and plot hook. So that's exactly what I asked for. And there's quite a few. So I'm going to say keep. This definitely looks good enough. And so let's look at some of these. First up, we have Karoo, a tall, masked robot with a deep, booming voice. Its personality is relentless and determined. Its motivation is collecting valuable items for its creator. And the plot hook, Karoo is seeking a valuable relic that was lost on the station and is willing to pay for the information. That's perfect right there. Nice little side quest, probably easily keep you busy for a session or so. So next up we have Ilya, a short, slender human with light blue skin and a wild mane of white hair. I like that. So human, but also with some alien elements, curious and friendly, exploring the universe and learning new things as its motivation. And Ilya is looking for a powerful artifact that is rumored to be hidden in the station's depths. All right, fine, another person looking for something. Maybe not as exciting, but let's just skim through some of these others, right? So here we have a large hulking alien with tentacles and multiple eyes that's unpredictable and intimidating, and its motivation is unknown. And Kron has been spotted on the station and is believed to be searching for something. What is it? All right, everybody's searching for something. We have Gwenna, a small human-like robot with a playful personality. And Gwenna is on the station to find a powerful energy source that will give her more power. Yeah, so overall, I think this is quite neat. I will say that the plot hooks could be better. Pretty much everybody here is searching for something. So, if I was actually using this now for a campaign, I would probably iterate, try this a couple more times, and see if I can get like a more interesting mix of plot hooks. I could also ask it separately to just come up with a list of plot hooks, separate from these NPCs. Let's actually take this opportunity to switch back to Midjourney and come up with an image for one of these NPCs. So for example, here, and I will admit, it doesn't always do a great job with people or beings, I guess. So this will be a little bit of an experiment. So let's try this one. We have Jabez, a short, stocky alien with a large head and 4 arms. That seems pretty unique. I know that I can't draw at all, right? So it's either no image or something AI generated for me. All right, so I will put in my prompt. Again, I will just literally copy and paste this over. A short, stocky alien with a large head and 4 arms. And see what it does. Okay, here we are. These look neat. Let's click on this, see if we can get look at this a little bit more closely. Yeah, this is pretty cool. I mean, the first one actually does seem to have 4 arms, right? You can kind of see the upper and the lower ones. And it is certainly stocky and it's got a large head, so that's pretty cool. This bottom left one is almost a bit like E.T. The eyes are really cool in the mouth, but it did ignore the 4 arms prompt, so that wouldn't directly match the description. Of course, I could just change the description here and drop the 4 arms and go with this. Same with this next one, right? It's got funky arms, not 4, but it looks cool. So yeah, and I could easily iterate on this by just clicking this button and ask it to try again until I'm happy. But I think this illustrates how you might use Midjourney to generate some images for these things quite well. All right, let's switch back over to Notion and go through another example. So here I created a blank page, and I'm going to try to generate a complete Pantheon for a fantasy RPG. So as usual, I use help me write, and my prompt is a made-up Pantheon for a fantasy RPG setting in table format. All gods should be new and unique. Each god should have a name, domain, and description. Again, if you want table format, it's good to be explicit about that. And I'm telling it that the gods should be new and unique because it did have a tendency to skew towards existing pantheons in previous experiments. So let's see what we are going to get. All right, looks like it's done. So this seems to have worked. We have a bunch of gods. Each one has a name, domain, and description. So we have Glorin, god of nature. And the description is, Glorin is the god of the wild, overseeing forests, jungles, fields, and deserts. He is seen as a protector of the natural world and is often venerated by druids and hunters. I like that. Next up, we have a god of knowledge, right? Learning and wisdom, universities, intellectual pursuits, venerated by scholars and teachers. We have a god of war. Of course, you gotta have a god of war, right? Battle, overseeing armies, tactics, strategy, venerated by warriors and generals. And last not least, we have Gala, the god of magic. Gala is the goddess of sorcery, overseeing spells, enchantments, and magical artifacts. She is seen as a powerful mage and is often venerated by wizards and witches. So that's actually kind of a nice little pantheon right there, right? And again, I could be very explicit if I wanted a particular number of gods. Maybe I want, 10 or more. Or if I wanted to include any other information, maybe what their churches or their priests look like or behave like or anything like that. Alignment, if that's a thing you use, right? Stuff like that. But for now, I'm just going to say keep. And there we have our fantasy pantheon. And I'm going to do one last thing in Notion here. So I'm going to create another empty page. There's a couple things I want to experiment with here. I want to see if I can get it to generate a whole calendar that my fantasy setting might use. And then maybe just a list of festivals and holidays. I've had mixed results with calendars. It somehow really seems to want to use the Gregorian calendar that most of us use. But let's take a stab. In my prompt, I have to be very, very explicit here. And even then, it's not guaranteed to work. But let's try this. So I'm telling it to come up with a calendar for a fantasy RPG. It should have unique names for months and days, neither of which overlap with the Gregorian calendar. Also, append a table of novel holidays and festivals that might be celebrated in this setting, including which date they fall on. So quite explicit. Let's see what we're gonna get. All right, so the first result here is just crap. It's literally just giving me placeholders, month 1, 2, 3, 4. Bad notion, bad notion. Let's try again. Easy enough. Same prompt. Let's see what it does this time. Okay, this looks better. So we got a couple of months with unique names. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I didn't give it any number, so totally fine to make up whatever is reasonable. These names seem kind of nice and evocative. Glinting Moon, Azure Glow, Silver Storm, Golden Rain, Scarlet Bloom, Verdant Light, Amber Dusk, and Shadowfall. I kind of like that. For days, we have Yestereve, Dawnlight, Midday, Afternoon. Okay, that's pretty bad. You don't want to have a day that's called midday or afternoon. So, you would have to iterate on this a little bit more. Sunset, evening, nightfall. Yeah, this is actually really bad. Let's look at the holidays anyway. So we have the Night of the Soaring Hawk, which falls on Glinting Moon 1, or the Festival of the Burning Sun, the Day of the Restless Wind. So that's pretty neat. It doesn't, of course, tell us what's being celebrated here. So let's maybe take one final attempt. I will slightly tweak my prompt. So let's say including what date they fall on and what is being celebrated on this day, and in what fashion. Okay, this time we got 12 months. Some of these look similar, like Verdant Wood, I don't know, Summer Dawn. Overall, these look quite nice. Starlight, Bright Moon, Moonrise, Starstream, Frostfall, right? So you could envision, this is giving me some inspiration right here. I mean, the fact that these month names refer to the moon, right? Bright Moon, Moonrise. Maybe it's different from Earth, right? Maybe the moon doesn't revolve around the planet once a month, but much slower. So you have a whole month where there's a bright moon or something like that. It could actually be kind of a neat setting. So then we have the days of the week. There are 7: Morning Star, Sunbloom, Moonbeam, Starshine, Silver Wind, Sunray, Nightfall. That's better. And again, this could go with the above theme, right? Maybe day and night cycles are totally different on this planet, and Sunray, maybe this is a day where the sun always shines, right? For holidays and festivals, we got more of a description here, so that also looks promising. So there's Bright Moon 1, the Day of the Ancients, a day to honor the wisdom of the ancients. People dress in white and visit the graves of their ancestors. Yeah, that's pretty fun. Or we have the Festival of Song on Starlight 16, a day to celebrate music and song. People gather around bonfires and sing songs of joy. I love that. A day to give thanks to the gods. Oh, that's cool. On Summer Dawn 5, we have the Festival of the Sea, a day to honor the bounty of the sea. People go to the beach and enjoy the sun and waves. So all of these seem quite unique and evocative. Right? A day to celebrate the power of dreams, honor the warmth of fire. So this is really cool. And again, you could really kind of flesh out your setting with this kind of stuff and give it life. Obviously, there's a ton more we could be doing here, but I think it's slowly time to start wrapping up. All right. So to wrap up, I hope I was able to give you a sense of what these tools are capable of and how you might be able to use them for your own RPG-related purposes. Again, don't think of any of the specific prompts I used as recipes. These tools are more capable than you might think. There's no need to memorize specific parameters or incantations or anything like that. Think about what you want to achieve and describe it to the tool in the same terms you would use to describe it to another person. With ChatGPT in particular, remember that you can follow up to ask it to further refine or expand on its responses. Well, that's it for now. Hopefully, some of this was interesting to you. I might go into more details in the future, perhaps even create an entire setting or campaign from beginning to end. Please leave a comment if there's anything specific you'd like me to cover, AI-related or not. And as always, likes and subscribes are appreciated as well. With that, thanks for watching and see you again soon.